Why?
All right. So, hi everyone. A very warm afternoon to all of you. I'm your verbal ability mentor, Sanjana ma'am. Welcome to the YouTube channel of Get Set Law by IMS. And this would be practice session 18, right? We've already done 17 sessions thus far, targeting different sections of CLAT, right? So that's English language, that's logical reasoning, and that's legal reasoning as well. Today, again, I have brought two passages on logical reasoning. So, having said that, let's just wait for a couple of minutes so that we have enough number of students to begin the class with. Okay, just a quick check. All right, so it's time we begin the session. We'll begin with the first passage here. Okay, now the first passage is sort of different in nature because there might be two important ideas that you'll be able to learn from the passage. Okay, so we are here talking about a knowledge and how today our perspective on knowledge or the fact that knowledge is viewed or looked at differently has changed. Okay, so there are two changes that have come about. The first one here is the nature of knowledge itself, and our relationship with it is the second change. Okay, so initially knowledge was formalized, was codified, captured, centralized, right? It was intact, to a situation now where knowledge has become increasingly co-created, adaptive, contextualized, accessible, distributed, evolutionary. These are what I like to call keywords. Okay, so knowledge, according to the passage, is ever expanding, it is ever changing, it is ever evolving. Right now, another very important thing is the way we impart education. So, here we're also talking about the formal education system. It also reflects the ethics and the values that the society has, right? So, the values and the ethics of the collective are reflected in education, right? And an education too evolves over time. Here, in this particular context, we're talking about India, that in India, education, the aim is to promote a national integration, critical thinking, and scientific temper. But at the same time, as any society matures, it might be able to process darker episodes of the past with more equanimity, right? Then there are multiple other questions that have been posed, and for all these reasons, textbooks and pedagogy need to be revised periodically. So, what are the reasons because of which these books need to be revised periodically? This is captured in this part, so as to be able to establish harmony, bring about harmony in the society, right? Because it will ultimately reflect the values and ethics of the collective, right? So, any society matures, it might be able to process darker episodes of the past, right? Historical context with more equanimity. All right, so these are some more keywords that I have been able to gather. Now, the problem that the author wishes to highlight here with the education system is the fact that it is driven for the most part by politics or politically partisan manner, right? In doing which there is a disregard of expertise. We're not critically evaluating the textbooks, for example, right? And it turns out to be toxic when strife instead of harmony. So the author wants to bring about harmony. It is promoted through formal education. So this is how the education system today stands, according to the author. This is a concern he has with it. Right now, he also goes on to say that the growth and development of India depends almost entirely on educating the population with what vocational and social skills and shaping youngsters into caring citizens of a pluralistic nation, right? So they should learn history with the aim of not repeating its tragedies, in order to do what? In order to build a harmonious future. So twice have we come across the word harmony, which means education in India, the very purpose of it be should be to be able to strike harmony in the society. There should be wider, more transparent, another keyword, consultations in shaping the curriculum at all levels. This passage does require you to read every statement, everything word for word. So every time, I'm coming up with these practice sessions, I ensure that I tell you which passage requires you to read everything verbatim, or which passage requires you to skim parts that are not that important to answering the questions. Okay. Okay, here we have the first question. And for the ones who are participating, it would be nice if you could just let me know your options in the live chat here. Okay, so what is the primary purpose of revising textbooks and pedagogy? Okay, what we're going to do is we will go through the options one by one. If you want, you can do a little bit of pre-thinking, but I don't think that's required here. To promote harmony through formal education, I really like the option. Although I cannot be 100% certain it has to be the answer. I haven't read the other options, but because the word harmony has been, sort of resonating multiple times in the passage, option A seems, something that we can choose. But take a look at B, to educate India's young population with vocational and social skills. One way to answer the question is to go to the part where the author talks about the need for revising textbooks and pedagogy, which was given in the first screen on the first two paragraphs, right? And then to be able to gauge the context in which it is mentioned. So when you understand the part where the author suggests that, the growth or development of India actually depends on training its population with vocational and social skills comes much later, which is not the very purpose of revising textbooks and pedagogy. So for the couple of you who might think that B is the correct option, you're wrong. It's actually wrong. To process darker episodes of the past with equanimity is something which is not as important as option A. As soon as we're able to promote harmony, option C automatically gets taken care of. Even if both the options are mentioned, you have to make a choice and choose the better option of the Lord. And by extension, you can understand that the correct option here has to be A over C. So cancel C. Disregarding wider consultations. Consultations to ensure transparency is important. So D is something that goes against the very idea of the passage. Correct option here is option A. Next question. Now, this might be slightly complicated, but it's easy to solve as well. I'll tell you how. It says, according to the passage, what are the two changes in the nature of knowledge and our relationship with it? All right, two changes in this aspect, the nature of knowledge and a relationship with. So what I remember from the passage, as far as I'm able to retain the information, knowledge initially was formalized, it was centralized, it was intact, right, to now becoming something which is, adaptive, it's co-created, it's contextualized. These are the pointers I remember, right? So knowledge becoming formalized and centralized was how it was initially viewed. Today it has changed, so A is out. Similarly, B is out because this is how it initially was. The problem with C is that the first part is fine, that it's becoming adaptive. But to say that it is also becoming restricted, don't you think it's much of a paradox here? Right? So option C is wrong. Correct option is option D, knowledge being co-created and contextualized. What a lot of students do, and that is when they, feel panicky and they're solving questions hastily, is they will just read the option not entirely, but like a part of it because they want to do everything hastily, and they might just overlook this word and choose option C. And that's a silly mistake. That's how we make silly mistakes. Okay, so be a little more circumspect and a little more vigilant while reading the options at least. The third one. So, what is the assumption in the passage regarding textbook and pedagogy revision? This should be easy. The revision should be carried out in a politically partisan manner. This is something that the author suggests against. The revision should be done with complete disregard for expertise. Again, if we are doing something in a politically partisan manner, it automatically does imply that there will be a disregard for expertise. So this too is out. The revision should be toxic. No, it should actually promote harmony instead of strife, but the opposite is given in option C. Correct option is option D, right? Should be carried out periodically with expertise and transparency. Keywords taken directly from the passage. Take a look at the fourth question. Now, which of the following option gives a situation that is coherent, or let's just say something which agrees with the principle discussed in the passage? A country revises its textbooks to promote nationalistic views. This is something that's driven by politics, politically partisan. Out. This is something that the author suggests against, right? A society decides to revise its syllabus to encourage harmony and understanding of historical tragedies. Perfect option. Perfect option, option B. There we have the correct option. This is something I cannot, uh, you know, not agree with. C says an education system disregarding consultation and expertise, again, going opposite. Okay. D says young population is educated with the aim of promoting national integration, which again is aligning with the view of promoting nationalistic view, something which is politically driven. So option D2 is incorrect. Correct option is option B here. Next question is an inference question. So, what can be inferred from the passage? Make sure for such easy questions you never go wrong. Don't leave any room for silly mistakes as well. Syllabus revision is not important for a robust education system. This is actually not given syllabus revision, right? Revising textbooks and pedagogy is important. So, this is out. Textbooks and pedagogy should be revised to promote political partnership. No, they should be revised to promote harmony, not political partnership. Cancel option B. Expertise and wider consultations are crucial for shaping the curriculum, as has been pointed out by the author in the passage. Perfect option choice. India's growth and development depend solely, yes, they do depend on vocational and social skills, but option D contains a quantifier, and the author does not say that these two are the only thing that will impact India's growth and development. These are just like two suggestions that the author has included, but not the definite solutions here. So correct option is option C. And the last question for this particular passage is this. Now, what is the most important doubt, problem, concern that the author raises about how knowledge is employed in contemporary education? I will not read the options this time around because one problem that I found in the passage, as has been, let's just say, voiced by the author, is that the textbooks, the material of the education system, they are politically driven, right? So there is political partisan ship involved here. So the best option choice is option C. He doesn't really talk about the pace of knowledge, so this is out. Experts are not involved in the revision of academic syllabi. Now, this is something which is coming secondary. It's not firstly given in the passage. It can be remotely inferred, but this is not the most important problem here, right? Learners are exposed to advanced levels of knowledge too early. That too is not mentioned in the passage. If you can find it out, that's not going to happen because this will not be there in the passage. Correct option choice is option C, right? So to me, this was a full scorer again, very CLAT level. There is nothing difficult about it. I will not say it's extremely simplistic also. There might be, those instances where you might feel a little perplexed between a couple of option choices, but a full scorer nonetheless. Let's take a look at the next passage. Now, this is interesting. It especially focuses on the stress hormone called cortisol. So it says over the past year or so, and I'm skipping a lot of information here. If you want, you can read it in one go also. But I feel like I can begin straight away with this statement as well. So, over the past year or so, users have flooded the app with stories about how their supposed cortisol imbalances, okay, have led to a range of health issues and concerns. Very simple line, okay. Now, what is cortisol for the ones who do not know? It's already given here. It's also known as a stress hormone. It's a chemical that regulates the way our bodies react to stress, right? So it's a hormone, another definition that connects the mind and body together, right? So nearly every organ has a receptor that responds to cortisol. A little bit of technicalities involved here. It is crucial in helping us function throughout the day, whether by regulating blood pressure or combating inflammation. Okay. So there are 2 points I can take from the first paragraph, which is the fact that users on TikTok have actually flooded the app with stories about how their supposed cortisol imbalance is leading to a range of health issues and concerns. Second is what exactly is cortisol. Okay. Now, in the next paragraph, the author might perhaps give a different argument. He might want to refute what is happening in the first paragraph. That does not necessarily mean that cortisol imbalances are responsible for the various ailments that people are sharing on TikTok. Okay, so this is something which has been voiced by an associate research scientist. This is not something that the author explicitly, talks about, but he's quoting somebody, which means he might want to inform the readers about it. That it's not always the case that cortisol imbalances have to be responsible for these ailments. Okay, so when we read further, and I'm just skipping that part which I haven't read out, it's not that important. This is the technicality involved. When we experience stress, the pea-sized pituitary gland in the brain, which is also called the master gland, it signals to the adrenal glands perched atop the kidneys, prompting them to secrete and deliver cortisol into our bloodstream. So when is cortisol secreted or released? That is when we experience stress. Okay. Another very important point that now I have. When we read further, it says our bodies release the chemical when we are faced with a challenge, repetitive information, right? Now, the challenge could be any sort of challenge, psychological or physical, real or imagined, but the bodies will release the chemical nonetheless, just the same, right? We release cortisol when we encounter a tangible threat, which means an actual threat, right? Which could be you coming across a bear on a hike. But also when we receive an ominous work email. All right. So the more threatening we perceive an event to be, the more cortisol we typically produce. All right. The mind and the body will respond to the event as if we were in danger of dying, when actually what's happening is that a sense of self is being threatened. So whether it's a psychological challenge or a physical challenge, whether we are hallucinating or whether we are imagining or whether the challenge is real, a body will signal release of cortisol. Okay, so that's all there is to the passage. Okay, whatever pointers were there I have already discussed. You just need to keep that in mind, and having said that, let's focus on the questions one by one. Okay, we have this question now. What is the conclusion that can be drawn about the relationship between stress and cortisol levels from the passage? I would label this as an easy question. Okay, I'll tell you why. Cortisol levels have no impact. This is wrong. Option A is out. Are these solely responsible for all the health issues? The author has already quoted a couple of people who have mentioned that it's not necessary that cortisol imbalance is responsible for all sorts of ailments. So, this too is out. It plays a crucial role, an important role in regulating stress. Perfect option that's given. Stress has no effect on the release of cortisol. Absolutely contradictory. Option C, best option choice. An easy question to solve. Take a look at question number 8. Now you have to weaken the belief. Okay, what belief? Good part is it's already talked about in the question that cortisol imbalances are directly responsible for the various health issues shared on TikTok. All right, we'll go through the options. Fogelman believes that people's desire for a simple solution is understandable. The thing is that this option is absolutely irrelevant. Okay, so cancel option A. Cortisol plays a crucial role in regulating various bodily functions. In a way, I feel this might just give more credence to the fact that cortisol imbalances might be responsible directly for various health issues because they are crucial, in regulating various bodily functions. So, for the time being, I might not choose option B. I have to be very clear about eliminating C and D. Okay. Now, M. Bennett suggests that cortisol is only released in response to physical threats. How does it weaken it, right? D says the connection between cortisol imbalances and specific health problems is not well established. Option D is the best option choice. If there is no well established connection between cortisol imbalance and specific health problem, it directly weakens this argument, right? That they are directly responsible for the various health issues. Best option choice, again, to me, this is quite an easy question. Next question here is asking you to strengthen the argument. Now, the only problem aspect of the question is that the main argument is not given here. But it's okay, we'll go through the options one by one. So, research has shown that individuals with consistently high levels of cortisol are more likely to experience chronic health conditions. And in the passage, it is being argued that according to a lot of people, let's just say here the sample people are the TikTok users, according to them, cortisol imbalances leads to varying, stress related diseases and ailments. So if we go through option A, don't you think it gives more support to this argument in the passage? So I like option A, but I want to be sure if B, C, D can be eliminated. TikTok users have reported a wide range of health issues that are completely unrelated to cortisol levels. This is definitely weakening, not strengthening. So cancel B. Medical professionals have universally agreed that cortisol is the sole hormone responsible for stress management. You might feel that what is the better option to, choose between option A and C. Option A is more potent because it actually puts things in perspective. It's more practical in nature. Professionals universally agreeing takes, a secondary role here in front of option A. So I can safely eliminate option C. I have a much better option than option C, right? D says a recent study found that cortisol imbalances have no impact on mental health. So cancel option D. Best option choice here is option A. That's how you have to cherry pick. This is an easy to moderate level question because I feel a couple of you might feel disposed towards choosing option D, option C here, right? Take a look at the next question. Now, this is an assumption based question, but can be tricky. If someone believes that their constant stomach bloating is solely due to cortisol imbalances, what assumption are they making based on the passage? I'll tell you how to eliminate the wrong options first. Cortisol imbalances are the most common cause of stomach bloating. You might feel if that's the assumption, then definitely this is only strengthening the conclusion. But the problem is it contains a quantifier. Cancel option A. Stomach bloating can only be caused by psychological stresses, not necessarily. It could be because of other factors as well. So, this is something we cannot assume because it's a very extreme option choice to choose. Cortisol does not play a role in regulating bodily functions. It's already well established in the passage that it does, right? So, cancel option C. We're left with option D, which here is the best option choice. That cortisol imbalances can lead to various health issues beyond stress. In this case, it is constant stomach bloating, which is why if you want to negate option D, that these imbalances does not, right, they do not lead to various health issues beyond stress, then this entire argument also gets impacted, invalidated. That's how you have to use the assumption negation technique. Also, for assumption based questions, I feel a better way out is to eliminate the options that contain extreme words or quantifiers. Correct option here will be option D. Next question is this. Now, based on the passage, if someone encounters a situation that is perceived as a threat, which means it's not actually a real threat, it's just a perception, but does not result in a direct physical threat. So, what can we infer about the release of cortisol? What the passage tried telling us is that whether the threat is psychological, right, or physical, or whether the threat is real or imaginative, cortisol will be released in the body, right, nonetheless. So cortisol would not be released this out. The release would be higher than in a physically threatening situation. So the comparison of when, in what circumstance cortisol is supposed to be released in higher quantities is not given out, right? And the effects on bodily functions would be minimal. This too is not calculated in the passage. So we're left with D. It would be released, and the individual, simply put, that's a simple conclusion, right? That the individual would undergo stress. Best option choice is option D. And the last question for this particular passage is, and this I really wanted to include, this is a double negative question. Least likely to disagree with actually means something that the author is going to agree with. So you don't really have to sit and break down the question and take your own sweet time of 2 minutes to understand. No. Double negative means just like two negatives make a positive. Here it means which of the following the author will agree with. The correct option choice is option C. We can cancel option A because it says cortisol imbalances are often oversimplified as a cause of a wide range of health issues on social media. They're generalized, but this is not exactly the opinion of the author. He's just citing a study here, right? So cancel A, right? Pituitary gland controls the exact amount. It's a quantifier. Go back to the passage and check if this is implied. It's not. Option B is out. Stress symptoms can be attributed solely. Quantifier cancel. But the perception of threat triggers cortisol release, whether the threat is real, imagined, right? This is definitely given and something that the author will agree with. So option C is the best option choice, right? So that was it about today's session. I hope you've understood, you've taken your own inputs from it. Thank you so much, everyone. We'll end the session with this.